pros and cons, you know. Those places got everything.
And
you're paying more, but you don't have to pay for taxis or Ubers or tips.
Right next door to us.
They're nice.
I had to buy that one because the police kept raiding it. It was a mess in our neighborhood.
Okay.
So, got it all settled down.
They got a lot of free publicity about it last year.
I never thought I'd be a landlord.
Name my birthday.
Big mistake.
Start the committee meeting of August 3rd. There will be no Board of Control meeting. We're going to go right into committee discussion. Mr. DeLeon and Mr. Ferrer won't be with us. I don't think we have to vote, so we don't have to excuse them. Mr. DeLeon said you all need to send your packets to him by the 17th of this month, or he's going to move on without you. So you all know what that means.
Those are done online, aren't they?
Yeah, I do.
They're online.
Yeah.
So.
And Rob, I need Rob.
Yeah.
All right, Committee of the Whole, first thing, proposal draft of new civil engagement coordinator position. Mr. Roller?
Thank you, Mayor. So in your packet, we have a first draft, and it really is a first take. I'm not necessarily here to ask for your approval on the final version tonight. It really is just give you enough to say, yeah, that's what we were thinking, that's what we were talking about, or no, we want to go this direction. So I think it stands up for itself and it's reasonably self-explanatory anyways. So I say it's a first take, but we didn't just throw something on paper at you. We thought about it and we're deliberate in our wording, and we tried to I took good notes from when you guys talked about this. So I tried to incorporate most of those in the various duties and responsibilities, as well as we looked at a couple of other cities that had somewhat similar positions. So we adopted some of what we thought was their good language, or a good fit for ours. Honestly, it's pretty comprehensive. Like I look at it and I think, not sure how it's going to work as a part-time employee, but let's start somewhere, and maybe it'll grow into something more. Maybe it'll morph into something differently. I don't know, but we haven't even run the math on this yet, Rhonda, myself, and the budget process. So I'm not here to present a salary range or what the full costs, with all the benefits and so forth. That's another round of discussion. Generally speaking, we try to incorporate any new positions into our budget for the next year. So I think we would recommend that if you want to fast track it, because I know it's a pressing issue for the community. If you want to fast track it, we can. But I would still, if you don't feel such urgency, we could start in January. I think that would allow us to kind of put it in the budget as part of the package, because there's other positions that we're also looking to add this year, change. And it's generally better policy for us, we find, that better decision-making, rather than hitting you 1 week with this one week with that one, another week with this one, to put them all together and say, here's the changes. I mean, you've already sort of approved the concept of this, so unless we come up with some really weird math, I don't see, it'll be in the part-time range, so I don't think it's going to be any surprises down the road. But so that's for another day, though. Tonight was really just to put this in front of you. Hope you had a chance to read it. I wasn't planning on necessarily walking through it, but I'm here, and Suzanne helped, and Hope, and so forth. We all kind of pitched in on some of this stuff. So take questions.
Okay.
I think he was first.
I couldn't see through John. Jack's here. I'm sorry.
I did read through this, and maybe I'm just dense, but it looks like you're almost going to have to train this person before they can work. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to comprehend. Someone's not going to just walk in the door and be able to do half of this stuff without someone explaining everything to them.
Well, certainly on the city administrative side, yeah, there's definitely a mutual learning process. I would also say, though, that this particular track is a growing track in businesses and in cities too, so I think there's more and more people that are at least getting some experience with this and wouldn't walk in completely new. But, if it's the right person, especially these days, labor market's so tight, a lot of places are just saying, if I got a good person, I'll train them. And that's there's some of that is certainly part of this.
So are we going to have, like, when someone calls in and someone's going to answer the phone and say, well, how can I help you? And they're going to state whatever their issue is, and they say, I'll connect you to our da-da-da. Is that how it's going to work?
That's certainly one element. That navigating the city and knowing, who to talk to, what to do, reaching out to the departments, trying to be as, customer friendly in that regard as possible, especially for people who may not have had a lot of experience dealing with the city. I mean, I hope there's not a lot of people intimidated by the city, but if there are, this person is supposed to help take some of that away and make it more accessible. So.
Yeah, see, there's nothing worse than say, well, just a minute, I'll connect you. They connect you to somebody, and that's not the right person who can, and you're on the phone a half an hour, and nobody has the answer that you wanted anyhow. So we definitely don't want to do that.
No, I mean, this would be more of an owner. This is not just a receptionist. What you're describing is more of like the person that's answering the phone and this is someone that would take ownership for as much of it as possible, and stewardship, kind of being the partner.
It sounds like we have to train our other people how to connect them to that person.
Yeah,
So.
certainly.
Further, John? Heidi?
Yeah, I appreciate what John was saying about it's a culture change. And I appreciate what you've done here, Dave. It looks very comprehensive. I just have a couple comments. First is I would hope that the job does offer benefits, because I don't want to make
We
a
haven't
second-class
talked about,
job.
I mean, I generally part-time do not, so that would be something different. Yeah, I mean, again, that's more for another conversation when we get into the costs and dollars and the salary range and compensation package. But just, I know it may not be what you want to hear, but generally our part-timers, right, Suzanne? That's correct? Yeah, sorry.
I just wanted to make that statement. Because part-time can mean 30 hours a week. It could mean, an almost full-time job.
I know.
So
I think we generally use 28, no more than 28 hours a week. Do you want to say something? Suzanne has to deal with this the most, so.
Generally, it's 24 to 28.
Oh, 24.
Mhm.
Okay.
I mean, if we start to talk about benefits, we're talking about an additional $20,000 just for healthcare. The only position we've ever done that for was the new registered nurse paramedicine position, and that was because it was grant funded. So every other position that's part-time, we've not offered benefits for.
And how many part-time positions do we have roughly in the city?
Across the whole city, it depends when you ask, but it can be up to 75, but generally average is 35 to 50-ish. But when Parks and Rec is in full swing,
Okay.
we got more.
Okay. Yeah, I have a couple questions. The second one is the necessary education. I think we're limiting that to a certain type of major, and that maybe we could say preferred
Okay.
instead of necessary, because we don't know, there might be a really dynamic candidate that,
Okay.
comes from, maybe Pan-African Studies or something that is not necessarily PR or marketing. Those are good people, but that's not all the skill set that we're looking for. Sociology would be something good too. It would have to depend, I think, on the personality of the individual, but you can certainly say what your preferences are, but I would be concerned about limiting it. And I guess the other thing that I would probably want to kind of maybe even work through a little bit, and maybe this is something for you to think about, is what are the priorities? Like if we had to say, what do we want this individual to really focus on in the first 90 days, you know? And then what are things that will happen as they gain a learning curve? I guess it would be kind of good to get a sense of, and that would even help somebody who might be a candidate. Looking at this might be pretty intimidating, but if you say, this is kind of graduated, you know, and maybe that also could have some, you know, we could have some input on what are the priorities, you know, of this position, because I know we threw a lot at you, and certainly this is very comprehensive, and I want to applaud you for that.
Okay. Robin?
I will pair what Heidi said. She actually hit on the head.
You
That's
tell
what I
his.
was Oh, I'm sorry. That's what I was going to indicate. This is from Dave's standpoint, and ours pretty audacious. Huge. For a part-time person, Roger and I were talking, and he brought up, you know, what are our priorities? And at the inception of the position, I think that we have to make it doable. We have to establish the metrics we'd like to see in place, but that we don't overwhelm somebody. Because as also Roger said, so he doesn't have to say anything. You could just sit back there and I'll just parrot what he said. That we have to, the person that we hire is the imperative. That person's going to have to be a lot of things, and some of those are a self-starter, being proactive, their ability to get out to the community, do outreach, and start building that network is going to be huge. But that we're doing this, I think, is a tremendous asset, a real tool in the toolbox for the city. You have a facilitator that's going to be able to connect the people out there, a diverse grouping of people, not just minorities, not just handicapped, not just seniors, but I ultimately think that position will grow to, well, that's just my view. It's going to grow, and I think it's going to be something that the people around here feel they really need, they're going to start to rely on, and it's going to be a real feather in our cap. So, with that.
Roger?
Yeah, just to build a little bit on there. I was looking at this, and when I counted it up, there were 18 essential functions. I really think that in reading it through each function, my feeling was, and I did mention to Robin on the way over here, because I brought him over some of the concerns I had, that when everything is a priority, which is what we're saying, this is all a priority, then there are no priorities. It's kind of interesting. That tends to happen to us all the time. We have a list of things that we have to do, and then what happens is that everything gets done kind of. It would be nice if maybe we look at this and maybe have 5 or 6. These are the primary essential things we have to have accomplished, and then these are then maybe have the secondary functions that we would like them to explore or you know, begin to develop. That comes from a little experience we had. We hired a similar person in the Nordonia Hills Schools in 1994, housed at the high school, because we were having some issues, both racial issues and drug issues, and a variety of other issues I won't go into. And what we discovered was, until we clarified exactly what their role was, that this poor person was being pulled a million different directions, because everyone who's sitting in this room will see this person as something different. And so it's so critical, I think, that in our job description or what our expectations, that we make it pretty clear that these are the primary things, 4 or 5 at the most, my suggestion, and then look at the rest of them and see if they can't be massaged together a little bit so that it gives that person the latitude to grow in the position. Now, I do also say that it was the most spectacular thing that we ever did at Nordonia, and it really was very valuable, extremely valuable. And it really worked well, and the school moved forward dramatically. But this person we dropped it on at first was overwhelming. They said, "You want Superman?" I'm not Superman or Superwoman. I get it, So we decided, we went back and redid the whole thing and said, "No, here are your essentials, or these are," we call them primary, and these are your secondary. And always the primary superseded all those secondary. So if an issue came up, they know that there's an expectation from us. That would be my 2 cents worth. Well written, by the way. Well written. Well written.
Suzanne, did you say benefits, if we're at it, were $20,000 more per year?
For just healthcare alone would be
Mhm.
20,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the average per
Very
person in the city.
John?
Oh, is this a position that's going to be work from in-house, or is this going to be work from at home and outreach, or we haven't figured that out yet?
Well, I no longer assume everything's in the office. Joan threw a curveball at us with COVID was all her fault, so just kidding. But that, right, it changed the workplace. So I would say I am thinking it's office person that works in the community, but it's going to have flexibility because it's very much meant to be, hey, is there a meeting, a night meeting, you're going to need to go to that, or there's this function, you probably should go to this. So I think, and candidly these days, especially with a part-time position, the more flexible we can be, probably the better. So
I agree.
Anybody else? Does anybody from the audience have any comment? This is just a working document, and the staff is kind of looking for direction. Come to give your name and address. Have you seen the document?
Minutes ago.
All right.
Thank you. I'm Christy Anderson, 1530 South Boulevard, Kent. I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much. I am really impressed with what I've seen. I can tell that a lot of thought has gone into putting this together, and it is very broad. And like you're saying, I'm concerned because it is a part-time position. When you start talking about priorities, and I agree with Roger that that's a good idea, I know from an employer standpoint, typically it's a supervisor that makes those calls, and I'm sure that council will be involved. But I would just like to add that I hope that there will be opportunity for community input also, even in terms of establishing what folks in the community see as priorities. I recognize this is a city position, and certainly there's a lot of city work that's being accomplished through the position, but with the community engagement part of it, I hope that the city will take some actually affirmative steps in getting some of that input. It's one thing to say input is welcome, but we all know sometimes you have to work a little harder and go where people are and meet them in order to get their input. So just, I guess, a reminder of that. So again, thank you very much.
Name and address, please.
Renee Rahutsky, 237 Highland Avenue. I also have much gratitude about the work that's put into this, and it's a really well-written position. Roger's points are also well taken. One suggestion I would have around the requirements is leading with the bachelor's degree. I think I mentioned at previous council meetings that my employer looked at how we just automatically had bachelor's degree or greater on a lot of our positions. And we stepped back and do you really need a bachelor's degree for this? And so, for me, I think the most important skill for this person is really good interpersonal skills and ability to, deep listening skills. Someone with a counseling background might actually be a good person. Someone with community organizing background might be a good person, and some of those skills are learned in places other than universities. So maybe some like additional education or equivalent is often a good thing to do, and maybe putting the degree, maybe even associate's degree. Some things, a little secret about me is I was an engineer for 25 years. I had an associate's degree, and that's all I needed. And I have a patent. I was able to do a lot of really amazing engineering things. No thermodynamics, but so just that idea of maybe an associate's degree or some other sort of degree might be something where you have, that just opens up the possibilities, because often there's a lot of people who have some college but no degree. So that's one thing. That's one suggestion I would make. Thank you.
Thank you. Further? If not, like I said, tonight's review of this was just to give a staff the update to us and advise of staff according. So we're good.
Yeah, no, thank you for that feedback. I appreciate it. I didn't want to lose any points that I heard, so I put them all on paper. But your points are spot on. We need to kind of refine this. I'm still not going to lose the points, though, because I still want to keep those. I think there's some good things in there that may not be at the top of the list today, but we don't want to forget. The only other thought I want to say is I don't want to be so detailed in setting expectations. Part of what I hope this person does is come in and get a lay of the land. The first year they spend talking to people, and they come back to us and say, hey, I know you thought this was the top priority, but this is what I'm hearing. It's until you're out there working it every day, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So I think your points are well taken to give better guidance, but still give them the latitude to help self-define that based on what they're hearing and doing. So thank you.
Well, thank you. All right, next item on Kent State Town and Gown update. Dana?
Happy August! The students are coming. You watch Game of Thrones, it's like winter is coming, here comes the students. So, no, we're very excited. It's exciting to be before you with an update. I think this has been really helpful. I was able to provide some things on May 4th and have quite a bit to share, so I'll try to be brief, and I have this written up for you too, so to make it a little easier. So we are expecting a pretty strong incoming first-year class, around 4,200 students living on campus. As we heard in an earlier meeting today, Joan was a part of, we have a bed for every student at this stage, which is exciting. Despite that, though, we are like all of our other peer and national institutions where we will have about a 2% decrease planned because of international transfer and graduate students. Our international actually admissions is trending upwards, but still overall we'll see about a 2% decrease. So just so you're aware of that at this stage. We'll get updates on apartment complexes here next week. They were trending pretty strong. We'll know more next week on that. We also have quite a bit of dates coming up. Things really kick off that third week. That's Kent State of Welcome Week. The week before, we have several pre-orientation programs for graduate students, international students, and our Capita Transiciones program for our Latinx, multiracial, African American, and Native American students. So you'll start to see this month, athletes are back, a real uptick in just activity, folks coming back, etc. We shared a ton of dates for fall on the Town and Gown listserv. I do have those dates also to provide to Amy, and so that you all have those that include homecoming, summer and fall graduation, parent and family weekend, just a whole host of things. One date I want to make sure that I do know is an event we're building on from last year called Kent States Connect, and it's really designed for our new and returning students to connect with Kent. Last year we were in front of the architecture building in that what's become now known as the City Green, and we had about 30 to 40 vendors set up, restaurants. The mayor greeted students. It was a lot of fun. We're well over 50. this year. We'll also be doing the Kent State Haymarket Farmers Market at the same time. I think it'd be wonderful if council and city leaders came to that. It's Tuesday, August 23rd from 4 to 7 p.m. There'll be a DJ, there'll be food trucks, and like I said, over 50 restaurants, local businesses, community agencies. Some of these fine folks behind me have already signed up for tables. So we're very excited for that. Let me pause there. Any questions about fall, welcoming students back, anything there I can answer?
Heidi?
Yeah, so this past weekend and since then, we've had U-Hauls all over our neighborhood.
Oh, yes.
So not only are there new students coming, but the returning the students at the upperclassmen are coming back and settling into their new houses for the year. So are there any plans to work with the returning students, maybe living for the first time in a residential neighborhood?
Absolutely. So every August, and actually we increased that to also around like kind of key activity times like homecoming, Halloween, St. Patty's Day. The chiefs, Todd Kamenesh, our assistant dean of students, we do canvassing, and Joan and I did it last year. We hit Fraternity Row, knocking on doors with a brochure that talks about here's who you reach out to, here's just tips for good behavior and being a good citizen, and what our expectations are, and doing it in a way where it's very much proactive. So that will happen sometime, I'm guessing, that third week of August. Todd Kamenesh organizes that, and I anticipate we'll hear from him. I'm guessing next week there's a community meeting. Many folks are here, attend that. I'm assuming that date will be solidified then, and we'll make sure it gets to council.
All right, just one little thing. It's really helpful to maybe include some of our edge neighborhoods. Edge meaning that there's a high degree of, we'll say, homeowner-occupied housing and student-occupied housing. Because I know that you tend to go on to these areas where there's almost all student housing.
Yeah,
but I think that one of the sensitive areas are really the edge neighborhoods.
That's really great feedback. And if you have any specific areas you'd like us to make sure we cover, please make sure. And I can talk with the chiefs too about some things and make sure Todd gets that as he's setting up. And we welcome you all to canvass with us. It's both an opportunity to build relationships as well as extend our expectation for behavior. I'd be willing to do that.
Yeah.
Gwen?
Hey, Janet.
Hey.
Thanks for the update. This is really exciting. I've missed the students. I missed the hustle and bustle of our downtown. So would you say, so you get 42 incoming students, would you say that, is this returning to pre-pandemic numbers of students on campus, faculty, staff? So, because I know at one point, there was obviously a big push for online coursework and things like that, and I wasn't sure if the university was going to be continuing to pursue something online, or if we're right back to where we were pre-pandemic in terms of number of people.
Yeah, we are definitely where we were pre-pandemic. What we have now is what I would term more of high flex options. So we have a mix of options, but we are a residential campus with community regions, so we do have more of those remote options, but we are not an online university. So you'll see things, I think, very reminiscent to probably 2019, though our goal was very similar to that of last year. So I don't see that number being too much different than where we were in fall of 21. The main difference is we had an uptick in dear COVID, and so we pulled a lot of the in-person back, but those numbers are pretty similar to 21 at this point, and similar to where we were in 2019.
Okay. So would we expect the same amount of like commuter student traffic?
Yep.
Or are those?
Yep.
Okay.
Our commuter and transfer numbers are down a little bit, but that's really more of retention and enrollment trends than it is more like residential where folks are living. Once we get those numbers for apartments, we'll have a better sense of what that looks like. But we're anticipating a pretty packed house. I mean, again, similar to 2019. Overall, campus-wide, about 2%, including our regional campuses, I believe. I need to double-check that number.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Robin?
Yeah, Heidi kind of spoken to this, but the aspect of edge neighborhoods where starting to abut the student housing against the owner-occupied properties, that's where we start running into more elevated situations. A suggestion, which I think was kind of spoken to, which is when we have these meetings that we make sure that they're integrated. University students, but we've also done significant outreach in our neighborhoods. And we bring these together so that they have an interaction, they kind of get an understanding, kind of get an understanding of, you know, what people's living priorities are and why. If it's noise, if it's this, it's that, you know, garbage, whatever. They have different lifestyles. I think that goes along to create that interpersonal, you know, connection, that we start to diminish some things that some people might look at and they'll be upset, really upset, as opposed to not as upset because I know Bob. And so we're able to create a greater sense by connecting the dots on stuff like that. I'm certain as council people would love to be engaged because we represent the students just like we represent people living in their houses. And, so it's just an opportunity.
Yeah.
So I mean, again, I commend Dave for his work on this. I commend you very much for engaging, getting out, and like I said, I just want to make sure that our neighborhoods are involved in this. It's essential.
I love that, and I think this is a great time for us to think about what that can be, and beyond just the canvassing. So I'll definitely circle back with Todd Kamenish and then come up with some things and share back with council and invite you to you know, continue to share your ideas on this too.
John?
Yeah, and we talked about 2021 and the uptick of COVID recently. Now, did I hear or understand right that all the campus activities are going to be masked now, or?
So we have adopted a policy that follows what the state's doing. So when we turn to, I believe it's a red, and I'll defer to to Joan, who's far better versed in this than I am. When the county turns red due to the number of, I believe it's the percent cases per capita, then masks are required indoors, not outdoors. And so right now Portage County is red, so the Kent campus has masks requirement indoors. We go back to yellow, that goes back to recommended, or if you're immunocompromised, et cetera. So it's really, we follow the county guidance, and it's really kind of a system at this point that's pretty straightforward based on what the state says.
Now, do the incoming students, are they aware of that?
Yes. Yes, and it's been highly publicized on all of our materials, our Destination Kent. We send out correspondence. We have still those things in place that we've been using to, at the time, address, and now more of the management stage. We just had a meeting today that Joan's a part of as well, to look at those things that continue, not just COVID, but other things to impact our collective communities and how we address them together.
Verna? When I used to walk with Pete Mahoney and Todd and that, we had brochures to hand out.
Yep.
So if our council people want to do their neighborhoods, there's no reason why they can't get that material and do a self-tour of their troublesome parts of their ward. I mean, Robin and Heidi.
and we'll get those. Todd updates them, and he's on vacation, or I'd call him up right now and tell him to get over here, but he's allowed a vacation. So we'll get those. We usually send it around for folks to take a look at, too, if you want to edit, so we can do that, too, Mayor.
All right, now, if you're interested in walking your wards, which you should, the information will be available to them.
Yeah, that would be great.
The beginning of this year is the best time.
Yep.
You know,
Well, that's when
really
they do
good.
it.
People are open and receptive, and
If I to guess, it's usually going to be I think the week of, like, the August 20th is or the week right before. But I'll confirm that and get it ASAP to all of you. So
moving in now.
I know. Just a couple other quick things to share. We're excited we were able to partner with the chief on the fire practice opportunities that took place, and I know the university really likes to be a partner in things like that and other ways that we can support your needs as well. I do want to report to council, very excited about the way our culinary services continues to create pathways for restaurants to be a part of the dining experience. So some new things that are coming, the launch of Downtown Dollars. It's part of one of our meal plans, and any of the businesses that sign up and can accept flash cash, each student that has the particular meal plan has designated Downtown Dollars. So that's a really big deal. Again, when you think in terms, we want totally self-operation, everything's internal since we moved from Aramark, and it's just a commitment on behalf of the university to that partnership. There's also a request for proposals for the space. It used to be the Rathskeller, for those of you longtime Kent folks, in the bottom of the student center, and so they're going through that process. And I know a priority was hopefully a local restaurant would go after that RFP, and then we'll also have the food truck events again, and kind of guest chef. And like you can come in for just a month, because we heard from restaurants, we can't maybe do a whole year commitment, but maybe we'll take over a spot for a month. So I wanted to make sure I shared that. You'll see construction's well underway. This is lovely up here coming in 2024. I think all the things are coming in 2024, including our Ambassador Crawford of Business building. So just a lot of excitement. If you have questions about any specific development or things going on, please let me know. And then I wanted to wrap up just really celebrating two really awesome honors. One, I think you all see that we were named one of the best college, city, university hometowns. I mean, this is awesome. They highlighted it because of our relationship and because Kent's just awesome. And we have a press release that got finalized today that we hope you'll share broadly on your own socials. And then another piece that does reflect that relationship, Kent State was the only recipient of what's called the Paul Simon International Award that recognizes the efforts that Kent State have done to not just expose our students to what it means to be global, but how our international students experience Kent State. And the city is a big part of that. It is a very prestigious award. There's only one that's given out, and Kent State received it. So great things going on. We're very proud of our relationship. I have other updates that I can share at later times. We have a new academic year calendar that will go in effect next year. But you know how to reach me if you have any questions, and certainly, appreciate your time today.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Dana.
Nice job.
Next, the City Hall construction, Melanie.
So it's hard to believe I was here just a month ago, sharing that we were just getting started. So what you have before you, I passed out a large sheet. You can look there. You can look up on this screen. First and foremost, we definitely heard your guys' request to make sure that we had some signs up. So if you notice, we have one that's actually facing South Water Street as well as one facing Haymaker. We tried to keep the intersection open so that there was a clear sight distance through the fence. But I think they look really nice. I appreciate everybody who texted me when they saw that. So thank you for that. So those are up, and we're really proud to be showing off not only the city, but our design team as well as our contractor. So quickly, we'll just run through this. If you've had a chance to walk or take a look at the site, there is a lot of activity going on. It's a little dusty over there today, so I'll be calling the contractor. We're hoping for a lot of rain tomorrow. But if you notice, the areas in red are already walls that were formed and poured, and the forms have been removed. So those are the beginning walls of council chambers. So you can actually begin to see where your new home will be located there and how it's beginning to come out of the ground. The blue on the drawing there are walls that are currently out there formed, and they're ready to pour. And today, they were starting to expand on those yellow areas, both on the west side of the building, and then they were going to circle around to the north and the east side. They originally thought they were going to pour today, but they decided they wanted to hold off and do a more complete pour on Friday. The only thing I said is, have you guys looked at the weather? I'm a little nervous. I'm like, if you need me to forward it to you, I will. But hopefully they'll get enough up and be able to do that pour. I know I had mentioned to you briefly in passing last time we were a little concerned about the availability of concrete. That's exactly where we're at. We're basically allowed one pour a week. So what they're trying to do is get the most done so that they can get the biggest bang for their buck for that delivery. So what you'll see is you'll see them working really hard for like today and tomorrow. You probably didn't see a whole lot of work on Monday, but they worked yesterday, today. They'll finish up tomorrow, and then Friday will be a really long day, 12 hours, if they can get it in, depending on where we are with the rain. The other two items that are highlighted there are both our elevator pit as well as our stairwell. The mason is coming in next week. They are hoping that they'll be able to bring that elevator pit up and out as well as that stairwell. It is the goal right now for the mason to bring 2 crews, but while we're beginning to see an uptick in availability of material, manpower seems to be a real detriment for them. So whether or not we get that second crew could be a big deal, but it's still going to come out. It just may be at a slower pace. I keep trying to remind myself I have to be in control of my expectations. I want to just wiggle my nose and it be done. You'll also notice on the north side of that, the foundations are completely poured for those retaining walls. It is their hopes in the next 2 weeks to complete those, bring those out of the ground, and be able to backfill that hill. We're a little nervous while it's open and exposed that it keeps kind of slumping off. So we need to get that back in and get that filled. As well, believe it or not, I've had the exciting part to go through the carpet, the tiles, the laminate, the doors, the cabinets, the acoustical tiles. We all reviewed those. Those are the same items that we've looked at. If you guys remember about a year ago, you had an opportunity to look at everything that we had covering all of those items. Right now, everything is still available. However, I told them, don't come back to me and tell me that it's not available unless you have an alternate. I don't want to go back and forth. Just give me that alternate and kind of cut our chase down, because the sooner we can get this stuff ordered, the better if we are for the project. As well, I received just late this afternoon the floor plans for the remainder of the staff, and I will begin meeting with them to go over furniture, because we do need to get a furniture company on board so that we can start getting those items ordered as well. So that's the month of August, and that's what it looks like. And so hopefully by the time I come back in September, we'll have a little bit up more with walls. The last thing I'll mention is the main atrium. We are having a little bit of problem with glazing and the glass. While we don't think it'll be a huge detriment, we may have to kind of screen that in or tarp that through the winter months. We were hoping that it'd be in, making heating a little more difficult than we were anticipating. But again, I'm trying to manage my expectation and not be disappointed if that's what really happens. Any questions?
Questions? Heidi?
Yeah, about the glazing.
Mhm.
Didn't we select our contractor partly because they have in-house glazing or something like that?
Yeah, it's not the personnel. This would actually be the product, the availability of products.
The glass.
Yeah, the glass itself is what
The
the
glass.
issue would be. Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody else? All right, thanks, Melanie.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Change in lateral transfer for civil service. John?
Yeah, it looks like John's coming up, but I will just give
sorry.
No, it's fine. I'll just give a quick kind of, this actually, Nick Chief Shear sort of spearheaded this, because he saw the challenges in testing for police positions, and, you know, we've talked in here before, it's true of all our positions, but certainly police included, in terms of attracting as many good candidates as we can, and what can we do to try to improve the probability of getting more candidates. And the chief sort of proposed, I guess, this lateral transfer idea and ran with it and worked with Suzanne and eventually John as he went through the civil service, because it's civil service. So John can update you on what the Civil Service Commission recommended, and if you have any specifics of why it matters, I think Nick would be particularly good to answer some of that. I mean, John too, but Nick is, you know, hands-on to that. So,
Right.
You could change that. You might be able to.
Yeah.
There you go.
You can even hold it.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, so the changes that Nick brought to us that were approved by Chairwoman Marilyn Sessions and Chris Klein, those are in red. And basically, what those do is they just set up language to allow for lateral transfers, establish them as a separate process, so you can have a lateral transfer list as well as a traditional competitive list, and then just kind of create a broad framework for how to implement them. There's still some variety in how different departments or different municipalities are using lateral transfers. Some have like a panel interview. Some do have like a small written test, so we want to leave that open. And just to clarify again, it is an option. It's definitely not a requirement. It's just, and it's not police specific if another department does want to or does not want to use it. Chief Shear brought up that experienced candidates don't always want to go through and restart the process of testing. Some positions have typing or physical fitness tests that go along with them that can add to the length of that testing process. Lateral transfers, they would save us money. Right now we do pay minimum $700 per test that we do. Some we are creating in-house, but police and fire are definitely the most tricky, so those probably won't be created in-house. And then, of course, like for police officers, some municipalities have language that they have to have, the officers have to go through their training academy and be full-time, which means then, the city doesn't have to pay for a new officer. We do have some local municipalities already using this. Stowe is one, Hudson is another one. We actually lost an officer to a lateral transfer to Hudson, and we actually got a records request from Twinsburg asking about our lateral process, which we didn't have in place at the time, but that's just another municipality who's getting the ball rolling, and it's growing, especially in a lot of the Cleveland and Columbus areas. So yeah, any questions?
Any questions?
Yeah, Roger. So, simply put, what's the advantages for the city of Kent to do this?
Yes, so it's more efficient. It attracts some candidates who may not have been interested beforehand, and they are experienced candidates. So ideally, they come in and get rolling.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, if I understood what you said, it increases the pool of candidates for our positions?
Right, because, yeah, I believe Chief Shear had testimony that,
Yeah, you keep looking over your shoulder, John, don't worry.
No,
I do it all the time.
I just saw him coming up.
In the car,
I didn't know. No. Yeah, no. But, yeah, just to clarify, it's not that, like, there's a large number, but it's that there's potentially experienced candidates who don't want to restart, and that's really who we're tapping into, that we aren't right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
I can try to expand on that a little bit. So first and foremost, one of the things, the major advantages to this is when you have an experienced police officer who sees an entry-level hiring process, they lose interest immediately. Right. They don't want to jump through all the hoops. There really isn't a lot different, a huge difference in the process. It's, for lack of a better way to say it, kind of a status thing. If you see a lateral process, generally speaking, that's what experienced police officers are seeking if they're going to do any job hunting, is a lateral process. It gives us as a city as well a little bit more control over the process and a little bit more, I think it gives us a little bit more leeway to kind of seek out candidates. One of the things that, this has become a really big thing, and specifically in the police world. I was just sitting over here kind of making a list, just a quick Google search will give you, and I came up with 12 police departments within our general region. When I say our region, I'm looking Portage, Summit, Cuyahoga County, 12 departments within our general region that in the last couple of years have taken up lateral transfer processes. And I know I left some out. This has been a thing in some of the southern portions of our state for a long time, like down in the Cincinnati area. But really and truly what it comes down to is hiring. The job market for police right now is probably more dire than most industries in this country, and we see what the job market is right now in terms of seeking candidates. And we as a police department, I think, are irresponsible if we don't do everything in our power to find the best possible candidates we can to staff our ranks.
Okay.
So this is just one more tool in our tool bag to help us do that.
Okay.
Heidi?
So would you say this might be it might help us with minority recruitment as well?
I think that's absolutely a possibility. You know, quite honestly, I mean, this comes back, the thought in my head and kind of my gateway into this conversation, I believe, was one of the things you said. It's probably been about a year ago in council. There was I don't know if you remember the conversation, there was a Stowe officer that was suing the city. And you mentioned, why can't we just go get that officer, or shouldn't we just be able to go get that officer? And that's sort of what in my head sort of made me jump into this a little bit and start looking more into this process. At the time we couldn't. Today maybe we could. Or when I say today, in the future if we pass this.
Roger?
Yeah, so, but this isn't just restricted to police. In other words, if we go to this lateral transfer process, it's possible that we could, in other departments, that there could be a lateral movement that could be used too.
Sure, and I think John said it well. It's an option for other departments, but it's never something that we have to do.
Oh, okay.
You know, so it's always an option. Another thing that's really nice about it is it gives us dual hiring processes. So one of the things we've experienced in the past is when we have the upcoming expiration of a civil service list, and we don't have an opening, and then that list expires.
Sure.
And now we have a lull for 3 or 4 months as we go through the process to establish a new list that we don't have any candidates we can look at. If we have dual processes with staggered expiration dates, we never have a lull in a candidate pool. We always have a candidate pool.
Thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none, I guess. John, are you done?
Yes.
All right, thank
Thanks,
you.
John.
Anybody from the audience?
Thanks, Chief.
Audience?
That was just for update of
No, you need to approve it.
you need what?
We need to approve it.
We need to
Yeah.
approve
Oh,
it?
all right.
Approval.
First, we should go to the audience.
Well, we need a motion.
Well,
Further
I'm-
dis-
Anybody from the audience?
Anybody from the audience have input on this? You? Oh, all right. They all, I know what's back there. I mean, you're the viable one.
There's our
right here.
audience right here. Right? Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the recommendation.
Second.
With emergency, right?
Yeah, it says right
Emergency,
here, Roger.
yes.
Emergency.
Yes, emergency.
Who seconded it?
I'll second.
Second,
Gwen
John.
did.
Any
Gwen.
discussion?
Gwen seconded.
Gwen seconded.
Oh, well, Gwen, sorry.
No, I have no further discussion. I think that if it makes us competitive, I think that's great. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. That's it for Committee of the Whole. Community Development, Mr. Kuhar.
Yes, we have Bridget and Tom, maybe, Tom, yeah. Go ahead.
Bridget.
Just Bridget.
We have the Bridget who's going to talk about the Trex request.
Yes, thank you. So the Community Development Department received a request from Wolf Jam, which is doing business as Board and Bevy. For those of you that may not be aware, Haley Bennett and Cody purchased the property at the corners of DePeister, Summit, and Day Street, the former Sparkle Market. And they are renovating the building and doing a small expansion as well to convert it into a business. And they have requested that to Trex in a license. We did have criteria for Trex, as you can remember, and they meet or exceed all of it. We're required to show an investment of a minimum of $175 per square foot. They're at $251. They have to be located in the commercial downtown district. This is actually the last parcel to the south that meets that criteria. They've agreed to assign a development agreement, which will basically limit the ability for the license to be just quickly sold. They would have to come back before council in order to transfer that Trex license to another entity here in the city. You may remember we've had that actually happen several times with the property that was Secret Cellar, then the Franklin Hotel Bar, and now to be the Standard. So the development agreement is a strong tool. I could tell you about the business, but Haley and Cody are here, and I think it'd be better if you hear about it from them directly. So if you want to come up.
That tired me. Hi, I'm Haley Bennett. Do you need my address?
Yes.
423 Wolcott Avenue, Kent, Ohio. This is Cody Gianelli.
I live at the same address.
Yes. So we're opening Board and Bevy, which is a board game lounge that the idea is we're going to have a library of board games. You come in and select a game, have a seat, have a drink, have a snack. Our goal is really to work with local businesses. I might need to talk to you about snacks. And we're gonna try and work with Taproot Catering about getting our food in. You know, there's no kitchen. We will have like a convection oven type situation to heat things that are provided by Taproot Catering or wherever else we might get things to heat up. Hot pretzels and things like that. We also are going to have all the necessary hookups on the outside of our building when we do the addition for food trucks and things like that. So we just plan to work really closely with the people that make that their business to supply our food. Yeah, whoa, so the license that we're checking in, we really want to have the license to provide drinks for everybody, you know, who doesn't want to have a drink when you're playing a game. Most people do, except for all the under 21s, the people who are trying to stop that. So we want to provide a lot of options that are not alcohol. We want to do a lot of fun mocktails and craft sodas. We're actually going to Cask in Salem to do some like taste testing, figure out what kind of sodas we want, and we want to have an old style soda fountain type situation. So we'll have the variety of syrups that you put in the glass, and then you pour the carbonated water over top. We want to have really clean water. I'm a little bit of a water snob. So we're getting a reverse osmosis filtration system for our ice and our water, and then we're remineralizing it. So it's going to be really delicious, I'm hoping. So there is a cover fee. It's kind of like a night of bowling. It's $5 per person, but it's all night. As many games as you want, you stay as long as you like. It just covers the wear and tear on the games so that we can afford to replace them if you spill a drink on them or something like that. So, but yeah, that's the business model, and we really want to work closely with the community, not just local businesses, but my ears perked up with the whole downtown dollars thing. Like, we want to participate in all of that. I've already been contacted by the foreign language department about hosting their game nights there. As a speech pathologist who graduated from Kent State and who really wants to be a resource for just the community in general and kids, being a mother of two small ones too. I want to work with the speech and hearing clinic about having some nights where the grad students can come in, work on their skills, and have kids from the community come in and have a night that's centered around that, or a day, you know, it doesn't have to be a night. But anyway, that's all of my thoughts on that for now. If anybody has any questions.
Heidi?
Yeah, first on the Trex.
Yes.
Is this wine, beer, and
it's
all spirits and pretty much
D5.
everything?
Yep, everything.
Okay. And the second question I have, and you don't have to answer this, but you'll be converting the one building that's on the corner, the cute one, that we were hoping somebody would use and do something nice with. There's another building.
Yes. Yes, so the house is going to be kind of like an annex of the business. There's not a lot of space in the business beyond, once we renovate it and everything, to have our inventory, office space, stuff like that. So though we're calling it our home away from home, it really isn't going to be a lived-in house. It's just a space for us to exist next to our business.
And to clarify for the planning commission, when the condition, or when the zoning use certificate was issued, it was identified as a commercial use and not a residential. So in order for that to go back, it will have to come back through that process.
Mhm. And the third question is the usual one that I'm not really fond of when people ask anymore, but parking.
Yes. So what used to be where the greenhouse was on the back of the house is now going to be a parking lot, sadly, but that is a thing that we have to do. So there will be 6 parking spots. One of them will be ADA parking. And we had to put the ADA entrance on the addition because the grade is too steep to come in through the front.
A minimum that they identified that would fit, but there is basically adjacent parking that would be where anyone else that would park downtown. Basically, you're going to park in the South Water Street lot, which is open parking after 5 p.m. Day Street has a couple on-street spots, even though there is someone that puts cones there. So that will be, the ancillary parking will be off-site.
Okay. Maybe we don't have to.
We can walk. We can walk. It's only a few blocks.
Maybe we won't.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm really happy to see that that building has gotten, is going to be renovated and have a business in it, because I've had a fondness for that building for a long time, and it's been on the chopping block several times, which was really, you know, a heart stopper.
Yes.
But I also want to ask, will you have any gluten-free options for yours?
Yes, actually, we've talked about that just personally. Yes, we would like to provide gluten-free options.
And I'll be there.
Okay. Yes, gluten-free, and we'll have kombucha, and we'll have, you know, we want to support all dietary needs. Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Do you have any idea of the hours of operation?
Yes. So, gosh, we've had a couple renditions of this, and I'm not sure where we've landed most recently. But I know that starting out, we're probably only going to be open Thursday through Sunday for at least the public stuff. We might do, early in the week, do more things that are organized towards university, you know, team building group stuff, you know, and the school stuff. So as far as the public goes, I think it'll be Thursday through Sunday, and I don't think that we plan to open until noonish, and be open till like 11ish. Somewhere around there.
Thank you. On behalf of the Kent Historical Society, thank you.
Absolutely, and I need to pick up our bricks, because we're getting the bricks, the glass blocks
Yes,
from the
we have a whole garage full of
Venice.
them.
I
Yes,
know.
yes.
I went and picked through them a little
Okay.
bit, so I just need to come get them. And it's cool, because we have those bricks that that's what we're building our bar out of, is
Cool.
those bricks, because they're kind of frosted, and the ones that are in our building are clear. But I found for $50, I got 200 clear. Was it 200? No, it wasn't 200. I can't remember how many. But anyway, that's what's going to be put in our addition, because it matches the block that. So anyway, there's going to be a lot of glass.
These are all the old glass blocks from the Venice
Yeah.
that were given to the Historical Society, and we have a ton of them in the garage, and we need to get them out of the garage. So we're very happy you're taking them.
Yes, they will be our bar. And then we found a bunch of bowling lanes that we're making our tables out of and our bar top out of. So it's just going to be a hodgepodge. And I drove a 26-foot truck to Columbus and picked up 32 4.5-foot church pews that are shockingly comfortable.
Wow.
So yeah, we're just bringing it all together where we can. We haven't obviously made a whole lot of progress. We've run into a lot of the same things that City Hall is running into. We did demolish the interior and took it back to its original 12-foot ceilings, open floor plan, so it already feels so much better in there. And it was really cool because all the original lighting was still hanging from the ceiling and stuff from the 20s.
You happen to find any provolone cheese or salami?
Well aged. Well aged.
No, but there's
Little
still,
olive oil.
there's still meat hooks down in the walk-in cooler in
really?
the basement. Yeah.
Used to be the Ferrer grocery store.
Yeah, yep. I've been trying to find somebody that is willing to play along and refurbish the walk-in cooler.
Oh.
See, I know, I was disappointed.
Garrett might have some interest.
Where, is he on vacation?
No, he had, he was out of town for tonight.
All right, fair enough.
He'd be the person to talk to her.
Have you
If can't
checked-
do it, he'll help you.
Have you checked with the Historical Society to see if we have any photographs of the old Ferrara?
I actually contacted Ryan Ferrara and asked him to please send us, because on our website we want to do a historic page that shows all the different pictures through time. He said his mom was looking for some. I'm sure they have plenty.
We might have some at the Historical Society. You may want to check with us.
Okay, yeah, I need to rattle that cage again because I haven't bugged him for a while and I haven't gotten any pictures, so.
Okay, now see,
Okay.
I believe, Tracy, you're done, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Any other questions? Okay, anybody from the audience like to speak to this?
That was the audience.
Okay, back to council.
I'd like to move to approve this. And do we need do we need an emergency?
But it says on the paper here.
Is there a second?
I did, second.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Passes. That concludes the exciting Community Development Committee for this evening.
Health and Public Safety, Mr. Amory.
Yes, the first item that Joan's going to speak about is the proposed renewal of the Health Department lease at Parta.
Hello. So I'm here before you tonight to ask for a renewal for our lease. I'd also like to thank Rhonda, Hope, and Dave for all their help with this because we're a little overdue, and I also, of course, want to thank PARTA for their willingness to extend. But I believe that we've come up with a lease that both the city and PARTA and myself and the health department is happy with and can move forward with, so we're looking to ask for your approval on that.
Oh, yes, questions. Roger.
Joan, has the move to the Parta building met and/or exceeded your expectations at this point?
Well, it's a fabulous location, and certainly the new quality of the building, the ADA accessibility, has really provided some features that we have not had in other locations. Being on the bus line has been phenomenal, not just for our interns, but for people coming in. So I think it's really met, and in many ways exceeded our expectations, yes. We still have a little space to grow into, but I think we're making that up. Yeah.
Very good, very good.
Tracy?
Now, does this include the second floor and the first floor location?
Correct. Hope did some really nice work in trying to get both of those on the same cycle, so this is an all-encompassing lease, and it will go, from year to year, and we won't be doing, a lease for upstairs and a lease for downstairs, so that, that makes it a little more efficient, too, so I appreciate that. Good.
We're really grateful to Claudia and her staff at PARTA. They very much want to have Joan as the tenant. They feel like we could get other types of tenants, but we think this is a really good fit with transit for all the reasons that, Joan answered Roger's question. And they were very amenable. They're not trying to, be able to retire off the rent. Our pricing is going up, but if you remember, we had a great discount through Kent State, like really. And so Claudia finally got to the point where she's like, I just don't think I can match that anymore. So we're paying a more honest rent now, and that's, given Joan some heartburn. She's been like, oh, it sounds like so much more money, but, it is what it is, and we can afford it, and it provides a facility that not only meets her needs, but we think, this is potentially a long-term contract. We can get out of it, PARTA can get out of it early, but the idea is to sort of block out a longer time frame so that maybe we do some leasehold improvements in there, and we don't do, she's sort of been flying by the seat of her pants a little bit, at least on the clinic side, and we've all been hesitant to overinvest. If you're not staying, are you staying? So that's what she referenced, the meetings that we've had, and Hope and myself and Rhonda and Joan with PARTA. And like I said, it was a very productive meeting. We're really grateful. And it's taken, I hope this is taking a lot of the stress out. I know Joan's been very stressed. She's still new to the administrative arena, so a lot of this Hey, give her COVID and give her public health issues, but she's great. Well, you know. So anyways, I hope you'll support it.
That's funny.
Robin?
Yeah, along those lines, from a square footage standpoint, are you going to be able to meet your needs? Apparently, you will initially with the possible growth of the agency, but
That's the beautiful part about that space is that we can grow into it. We're maybe not using 100% of it, but we have that potential to grow into it, so, especially in the clinic space downstairs.
That's a nice space.
And as a matter of fact, we'll be doing a vaccine clinic this Saturday, so we're not just using it Monday through Friday. We're looking to try to, use that space to help meet the needs of the community at various points and times.
John?
What percentage of the building does the city own, what percent does PARTA own?
So, yeah, how would you describe that, Jim? I mean,
PARTA owns the whole building. Yes.
Yeah.
we just paid our share for the parking.
PARTA owns the entire building. We had a 50-year lease that was front-loaded for the upper floors of the deck.
For just the deck?
Correct.
Yes, to permit public parking in the deck.
Okay.
Tracy?
Yeah, does this mean we're finally going to get a sign out front on the bottom floor?
I think that should be the next thing that we work on, yes, so that it's easier for people to find us.
Yeah, I think
Chamber would like that.
Further questions?
They'll still come to the chamber offices.
They all do.
Any other question? Anyone from the audience? Back to council?
Move to approve
Second.
with the emergency.
Comments? Heidi?
I'm just so happy that you found a place, that you've landed in a place that really feels like it's visible, it's accessible, and that you can grow into and maybe really start to think about how do you want to do some innovative programming and, maybe even some design, like you were saying, a build-out, for the future. So kudos on working that agreement out to all of you, and I'm really pleased to support this.
Roger?
Yeah, I would agree with what Heidi said. I also think that now that you've found a home, and it's really a good home, I really think there should be a sense of pride, and I think signage is critical. I think it's funny how many people don't know that you guys are in the, in that area. So, yeah, but I think signage is real important, and it should be a sense of pride for our community that we have, we'll have a new city hall, we have, the fire station, the police station, and we actually have our health department right there, a block away, and I think that's a source of pride for our community. I think signage is critical at this point, so something we'll have to work on.
We'll get to work on that next.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks, Joe. The second item on the agenda for health and public safety is the school resource officer contract. Chief Scherer.
Good evening. Thanks for giving me the time to speak again tonight. I think you guys will all be sick of me by the end of the night. But I just want to come and ask for council's approval to accept the new contract with the Kent City School District for the school resource officer for the 2022-2023 school year. Just so you're all aware, there are no updates essentially to the contract except the dates. We did leave the provision in that was put in last year for the protection really of the school in the event that there does happen to be another significant COVID outbreak that would require remote learning and negate the need for a school resource officer. They would not be responsible to pay their share of that during the school year. But other than that, like I said, that's the same wording as it was last year, and there are no actual updates to the contract.
Thank you, Chief. Questions? John?
If my memory is right, sometimes it isn't, originally, didn't we have some federal or state supplemental help with that? And are we having anything like that happening now?
We currently, I don't remember ever having any supplemental funding for it. We currently do not have any supplemental funding. There are really not any grants that I'm aware of right now for school resource officers.
Ridiculous.
There are different ways for us to explore some things, but we're probably a couple years away from being able to do that.
I think just something telling me right from right when I started, there was some type of an incentive. All right, thank you.
Anybody else? Robin?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Based on what's been happening and the focus by some that they want to secure our buildings, it would seem to me that that would be something that they would have advanced.
Let's look it up.
You know, if you want teachers to carry guns, then I have to assume that there's a high probability you'd want trained officers, individuals of a certain skill level there.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. Unfortunately, we've actually more recently seen a trend in the opposite direction with some of the stuff that happened in the kind of the post-George Floyd era and police reforms. We saw a lot of schools go away from school resource officers, and they haven't started, really coming back yet. So, unfortunately, although I agree with what you're saying, and from a security standpoint, I think that there should be funding for it. Right now, we've actually seen a decline in school resource officers nationally. So I think that's why you don't see the funding for it.
Further questions? Anybody from the audience? Back to council.
Move to approve.
Approve with emergency.
Second.
Gwen seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
And then Chief Myers, the fireworks law.
So this item, I think you recall, a couple of you had your own personal experiences with late-night fireworks, and just to refresh your memory, we did talk in advance of July 4th, the chiefs and Hope and myself, and we discussed, do we opt out immediately, or do we give the community a chance first and see how it works? Because people were pretty excited about it, and Bill had all kinds of literature in terms of it's not meant to be a free-for-all, but you can use consumer-grade fireworks at your homes and so forth within certain parameters and distances. And the combination of late night and the lack of attention to those actual parameters led Bill and myself and the rest of the crew afterwards to say, we tried and we don't think it was particularly successful. We think from a safety perspective, people viewed it as a free-for-all rather than a change from the old law was still with some regulations. It was, there's been plenty of examples, I think, that gave us enough concern to come back to you. And you referred it anyways. You were hearing the same thing. So, Chief, do you want to pick up from there?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Good to see everyone. That was part of our process was, again, the rules changed. Let's see here. In November 8th of 2021 is when the law changed. However, they didn't write the rules, and the rules were not complete until June 22nd of this year. So it took quite a long time. We were wondering what's going on, what's this involve, and so on and so forth. So once they finally did, obviously it's a couple weeks before the 4th of July, and after reviewing those and so forth, it was something that we thought, well, let's just let things ride for now, and then see what you all think, and get your input and ideas and so forth, and see how things go this 4th of July. And there was, I think that in the literature there may be the laws, how it changed and so forth, and there's certain days that you're allowed to shoot off fireworks. There's certain times that you're allowed to shoot those off. There's regulations on whose property you can use. You can't use anybody else's property unless you have their permission. There's no discharge of fireworks on state, federal, or even public land, and that includes streets, private school property, as well as public school property. So there's a variety there. I think it goes down to a lot of injuries occur to those who are under 18, just because of their lack of knowledge on how to use that type of device, as well as being careless. We also want to, part of the law talks about the use of alcohol and illegal drugs when using firearms fireworks, just because of the fact that those are probably the biggest reason why people get injured, is because of the use of mind-altering substances and not using good sense when playing with explosives. So those are some things that are on there that have been discussed. I'm certainly happy to been working with Hope here. Again, a couple of the things that we're looking at is utilizing our old legislation, as well as making sure that that the sale of fireworks within our community is not permitted, just because of the storage that would be involved, as well as the change to sprinkler systems and so forth. Being concerned that retail outlets may have only a real small area in which they want to sell that type of product, and my concern is just the public safety in that regard.
Okay. Any questions from council? Gwen?
So, I guess I'm a little torn on this issue, because I thought it would be a lot more fireworks, but it seemed like it was pretty much the same as last year, as far as I could tell. And I asked a couple of residents. I know we had some complaints, but just in looking at the state legislation, and I know there's not often that the state legislation, I think, but this looks pretty thorough in the scope, that if somebody was misusing the fireworks, there would be ample opportunity for police to intervene. Was there an uptick in injuries or anything that, or was it just mostly noise? What is that? What brought that here?
I think if I understand from Chief Scheer, and he said it was from June 26th to July 10th, he received about 9 calls the police department responded on, and there was 1 summons. Through July 1st through July 10th, it's estimated that our dispatch center received about 10 calls per evening in regards to the fireworks. And then we, as the fire department, did not respond to any fireworks incidents.
So there were 10 calls. I'm sorry, what were the dates again?
That was July 1st through July 10th. Okay. And that was about 10 calls per evening, and that's an approximation, is what I got from our dispatch center.
Okay.
If I could add real quick, I think it's just for clarification purposes, 10 calls per evening, that includes questions and everything regarding fireworks, not necessarily complaints about fireworks. So I don't want you to think we got 10 calls per evening and only responded to 9 in that whole period of time. That includes questions about the law and things like that as well.
Am I allowed to, or what's the regulation? How can I find that?
Did we have a lot of police calls that were after the time? Because some of that time it was allowable because we hadn't opted out. Did we have a lot of calls during the times that people, I guess, I think 11 o'clock was how late it was?
So generally speaking, the majority of the calls were within the tolerance of what the ordinance says in terms of time. Now, were they within the tolerance of the ordinance in terms of did they have the proper fallout zone? Did they have all that stuff? Generally speaking, I would say more often than not they were not within that. That being said, a lot of the time when we get a call and by the time we get out there, there's no fireworks going off. We can't locate where they were to be able to determine whether or not they had all those things in place. That being said, and I think it's important to note, one of the things that came up, I think, in the last council meeting is that there was a resident who was here to complain about how we told her we weren't going to respond to the complaint in Alley's Park. That is 100% factually incorrect. We responded 2 times. We warned the gentleman on the first one, and he is the one who received a summons. in regards to shooting off fireworks outside of the state law, because again, you cannot shoot those off on public property, and he was in a city park.
Okay. Tracy?
So would you say that the calls that you got this year were more or less than, or average? I mean, are they same as last year when the law didn't exist? I mean, how do they compare?
So during the same time frame last year, this year we responded to 9 calls in that time frame, and I actually went beyond just the legal time frame to shoot the fireworks off, just because I look at a couple weekends before, a couple weekends after, essentially, of the 4th of July to say what did it look like, to get a comprehensive picture of what that time period looked like this year and last year. This year we responded to 9 calls. Last year we responded to 8 calls and issued 1 summons. So it was very consistent, really, from last year to this year in terms of complaints.
John?
How do you feel about, say, a 4-hour window on the 4th of July and New Year's Eve for allowing fireworks, and then no fireworks the rest of the year?
I'm certainly open to whatever you guys would decide. That would be perfectly fine with me. That's something that I could support.
You know that no matter what we come up with, you're still going to have 8 cases, 8 calls, and 1 summons.
Right.
Robin?
Yeah, so there was pretty much just one finding of fault during this period. Do you think, and I don't know, I know Heidi has gotten calls, I quite frankly have not. The changes, our focus, do you think that there will be a diminution in kind of out-of-line usage of fireworks? Do we have the resources to even deal with that, even though I know ultimately our responsibility is to try and ensure peace and tranquility of
So just I want to clarify, make sure I understand the question. Are you asking if we have the resources to effectively respond to all these calls?
I know that's a stretch all the time, but if we implement something that is a change that could end up detracting from your ability to respond in other areas,
I would say,
what mechanism can we employ that we're able to effectively deal with that?
so I don't think it's going to affect our ability to respond in other areas, just because, I mean, that's a prioritization thing on behalf of our shift supervisors. And I don't mean to downplay the significance of someone being annoyed by fireworks. I understand it can be a public nuisance and people can really become angry and irate over the issue. That being said, if there's something that's more pressing, that's more of a public safety matter, where life or something is in danger in that moment, we're going to prioritize that over the fireworks call. So I don't think it takes away from anything else. Does it put a drain, I guess, on resources at times? Yeah. I mean, responding call to call to call to call to call on a fireworks call, it does become a lot sometimes. That being said, if that is what you as a council decide, it's not something that's such a significant problem that we can't do it. And quite frankly, up until this year, it's something we've had to respond to. I mean, it violated state law up until this year. So it's not like it's going to put us in a situation that we've never been in before.
So at the end of the day, the change, can try to be prescient about it. Do you see a increase that will tax you a little differently?
I guess I would say no to that, just because it's something, I guess we've seen it both ways now, and this is the only year we've ever seen it the way it currently is. And in previous years, we had to respond to all those calls and be a part of it. So I think that this is such a new thing, and we've had a 1-year trial run at a potentially reduced call volume, that I don't think it's a big deal in this moment if we go back to the old way.
Okay, John?
I'm looking at this new state law. You see that took effect in June, right?
That's correct. Yes, June
Okay.
22nd.
So there was actually only one allowable holiday since it's been in effect.
Correct.
So we don't even know what people are going to do on Memorial Day, Labor Day, Chinese New Year, and everything else. We're just dealing with the typical 4th of July, which was typical no matter what the law said.
Yes, I would agree with that. The next one is Labor Day, is the next days that you can, according to the state law, legally discharge fireworks.
And do you usually have a problem on Labor Day?
Normally, that is not a traditional day that we see fireworks, to be honest with you.
We'll see.
Yes, it all.
How about Chinese New Year?
Yes, it is.
I mean, do you typically have a problem on Chinese New Year?
No, sir, and I probably cannot tell you when the Chinese New Year is, forgive me.
Or Memorial Day?
Memorial Day is another one of those. Yes, it is, Memorial Day weekend, and Juneteenth, as well as, let's see here, Cinco de Mayo, and the Chinese New Year.
Oh, my God.
Tijuana, yeah.
We typically have not had any excessive problems or notable problems.
I think the only time where it's been noticeable to me is the 4th of July. And that's, other than that, and the New Year, too.
Yeah.
So when the New Year is rung in, there seems to be people that usually discharge fireworks.
So they start the New Year and the 4th early.
No, you're right. Just relax.
Okay, anybody else want to speak to this? Okay, Heidi?
Are we ready for a motion?
Does anybody in the audience have anything to say? No? Okay, back to council.
I would like to move to opt out of this policy, of the state's, whatever it's called, ordinance, whatever. I'd like to opt out.
With the emergency.
With the emergency.
It's on your paper.
I would love to second it, but I can't.
They don't know how to read.
Nope.
I'll second it.
Okay,
just a second. Go on.
Tracy.
All right, thank you. Here's why. First of all, I think people have started to give up on the idea of enforcement, you know, and people are somewhat tolerant of fireworks happening in a certain amount of time frame on the 4th of July, not past 11. Often it's a work night, you know, and I do get a lot of comments. You know, I put that on Facebook, and I've got 50 comments, which is pretty big. Plus, people at work said, "Hey, you know, I saw that, and I totally agree." And you know, people's pets. This impacts people's pets. You know, enforcement is an issue for sure. But I don't understand why we would make it even more lenient, given that we have a small community with small yards. I was kind of afraid. We had bombs going off in my neighborhood. Where are they? Are they following this 50 feet, 450 feet, 25 feet? You can't. You can't. You cannot follow these rules. So it makes everybody a lawbreaker that is actually trying to do this. You know, I think, you know, going back to the old way, you know, would be truly better than opening it up to all these days. And then people will be like, you know, because people don't read the legislation, they're going to be like, oh, well, they did it last week, well, I can do it tomorrow, and we're just going to have a situation. And we're not going to necessarily call, because people get frustrated with calling the police and registering their concern. So, I mean, if we could opt out, or if we could opt in for a certain amount of time on July 4th, then I would be okay with that. but it seems as if we can opt out or not. That seems to be the case. So I just think that I've lived in places in the city of Kent where fireworks were going off all year round, essentially, and I just live in fear that this is going to create that same situation.
Any other comments? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
I can't vote. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Fails. And that is all from health and safety, and
We're gonna hear
the
about
people who voted no would like to answer my phone at 11:15, because that
Yes,
really ticks
I
me
agree.
off.
And 2 o'clock in the morning.
I got a lot of calls because they were going off at 1:15 in the morning.
Yes.
Well, doesn't that violate the new law?
Yes,
It does.
that's the point, Joe.
However,
How do you get to them? They're
Okay.
done by the time you can get to them. All right, Streets and Sidewalks Committee, Mr. Sidoti.
Yes, we have Mr. Bowling coming to talk to us a little bit about the Fairchild Tower repair, the water tower.
Thank you.
Welcome.
We're here respectfully requesting council approval to waive competitive bidding for 2 aspects of the repair to the tower. The first is retroactive for the emergency repairs to the foundation of the tower, which is ongoing currently, and the other is to replace the damaged piping and the air relief valve to the tower to put it back in service. The tower failed on April 24th, and we're making this recommendation because the company in question has the capabilities and capacity to complete the work in a timely manner. It's the specialized nature of the work. The actual entrance to the tower is the size of a man. I have to bend over to crawl through it, and they're putting in 20-feet pieces of pipe to fix the tower into that. And their ability to access materials. We just got a notice today that it's going to take 60 to 70 weeks to get 6-inch ductile iron pipe if we need it for another project. So they have access to the materials we need for this repair. So we're respectfully requesting your approval.
Any questions? John?
Can you just pipe in a little quick here? Add to,
And I would like to add that state law does allow you to waive the competitive bidding requirement for these reasons so that we can get this started.
So, my question is, it broke down in April, and this is August. Why are we just looking at a contractor to fix it now? And how much longer would the competitive bidding take? And the problem is not necessarily the time, but the accessibility of material?
So the answer to the first question is we've been working on the repairs since the day it failed. Okay, from cleanup to hiring experts to come out, look at the foundation, look at the structure, determining how to repair it. It's not so simple as, okay, this pipe broke, I'm going to put this pipe back in. It also has to do with how they can actually physically get to it. The other thing is some of the removal that's being done now was asbestos. So we had to get a specialized contractor to get in and do that. And every time these things come up, it takes time to get somebody on contract and on board. And we have good relationships to get people started right away, but it's amazing. Say it takes 2 weeks to get a proposal from the consultants to come in and take a look at it. That's 2 weeks gone by. And then you start assessing it. Whoa, we need someone to look at the foundation. We need to hire a surveyor to look at to make sure the tower's not leaning. All these things have been happening over the last 3 months in that time frame. And then I believe your second question was how much longer will the competitive bidding process take? We're looking at a minimum of 3 to 6 months longer, and if it could be much longer than that if the person who gets the work cannot get the piping and material. We could be looking at a year or more. So.
And your person has the materials now that's necessary?
Yes, they've worked in Kent. They do waterline work in Kent. They're a large company with the resources to get this done.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've been 11 months trying to get proposals together on a marina I'm dealing with. Yes.
Other questions from council? Seeing no questions, anyone in the audience? Back to council.
Move to approve with the emergency.
Second.
Any comments, council? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Thank you very much. We
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Jim. Okay, Kent Skates.
As Melanie cues up it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas music.
She loves Christmas.
You may not realize, because I didn't realize, last year when we did the skating rink, you only gave us approval for the street closure for that 1 year.
Correct.
So really, she can give you some updates about this next coming year, but it's essentially the same, just year 2. And we now need your approval. I would guess make this a permanent event unless otherwise informed, so that we don't have to keep coming back and getting the same street closure every year. So, sorry, Melanie.
No, sure.
Oh, yes, Trace.
Yeah, I would like to know, first of all, every year the weather's going to be getting warmer, so we're going to have to be putting more and more energy into doing the skating rink. I think the skating rink is a great idea and it's great for local businesses, but how much energy are we using putting this thing together? Because we really need to start thinking about changing our behavior. I mean, things are getting critical with the global warming, and this is just adding like more energy.
Okay. I don't have those numbers off the top of my head. I'd have to look that up. I know that our energy bills last year for the 4 months that were in there, we paid a total, and we split this cost with the university. I want to say it was like $6,300. So I don't know what that equates, though, in usage. So I'll have to get that information for you.
Other questions from council? Seeing none, any questions from the audience? Seeing no audience, any
Even better.
back to council? Yes, I do.
Yeah, I would like to move to authorize this with emergency.
Second.
And I was asking that it be approved to continue year after year unless either discontinued or there was a problem that council wanted us to
Okay,
discontinue
I'll add
it.
that
So
to my motion.
just to make sure that that's what we get.
I'll second.
Any further comments? Yes, Heidi.
Yeah, I just want to say that, yes, I'm concerned about energy use, but I'm also concerned that we have an outdoor activity, another draw for Kent, something for students and families in the city of Kent. We don't have a pool, an outdoor pool or anything. I think this is a wonderful activity, and I highly support it.
Gwen?
I just want to say, last year I was really floored by how many people and families used it and kind of made a whole day of it. I mean, I was really blown away by how many people used that skate.
We had over 15,000 people that had signed waivers to be able to use that. So
That's
it was
huge.
hugely used. We were stunned ourselves.
Congratulations. Thank you very much for all the work that went into that. It was really
We're looking
a
forward to
wonderful
year 2.
asset. I remember the video was really fun. I know you were, I'm kind of disappointed you didn't wear the mittens and scarf this
I
time.
was, but I'm sorry, it was 93 degrees
It helped
today.
sell it. It really helped sell it. No, congratulations. It's awesome. Very cool.
Thank you.
Jack?
Yeah, I have to tell you, Melanie, I have friends who came to this from out of town, just thought it was sensational. Your hard work and the work of joining with Kent State University, the work of the administration, your work is very much appreciated because we really are a destination. People come here for all of these great things that we have going on, from the gaming place now that's going to be opening. It's exciting. It's an exciting time to be in Kent, so thank you.
Robin?
Yeah, kudos. I think that this is an asset. I don't know why we wouldn't want to do it. It draws to our downtown. There's money there. And I think quality of life situation for our residents, that they, as Jack said, it's a destination. It makes us more of a destination for people outside of the community who want to come in. I just don't see why we wouldn't want to be doing this. So wholeheartedly support it.
Well, seeing no more questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Thank you, I appreciate that. But I do want to also say thank you to Kent State and PARTA. Honestly, it is a huge collaboration between all of us to be able to pull this off and work together. So we are blessed to be able to have what we have here.
Okay, moving on, Finance Committee, Mr. DeLeon's absent. Tracy, will you chair that?
Ms. Baker's up again for Community University Education.
Thank you. I am before you tonight. We have been members with the CUE, or the Community University Education Program, for a little over 15 years. The cooperative has allowed the city to participate in various biddings, such as salt and vehicles. The purpose of the CUE was to obtain quality merchandise, materials, and services for its members at a lower cost through pooled purchasing and competitive bidding. In the past 4 to 6 years, the program has lagged behind a little bit and suffered a bit due to the amount of work it took to gather information, provide specifications, and to do the bidding. The University of Akron ran the program for many years, and unfortunately, staff who helped facilitate the service were unable to keep up with the demands, and during COVID, this became even more strained. So many of the member communities, the City of Kent took great pride in being a part of this. Took the lead to assist in setting up a more formal agreement with requirements for membership, expectations of process, meetings, and decision-making for purchasing. In the desire of the CUE members to be proactive with bidding our needed materials and services, it is the hopes of the members that other needs may also be met in the future by pooling our collective resources so that we may bid such items such as street painting, pipe, stone, asphalt, at quantities that are more competitive rather to continue at our standard where we purchase those things alone. I had provided you the list of member communities. There are quite a few of us. I also provided you the list of the steering committee, where you can see that the City of Kent has been a part of that steering committee for the last 3 years. I would respectfully ask that we go ahead and allow for the adoption of the bylaws and the ability to enter into this cooperative Council of Governments, making it a regional Council of Governments, so it's a little more formal and a little more straightforward. Just to let you know, prior to this, we were paying $200 to the University of Akron for basically just getting our salt, which was great because it's a competitive thing and it was hard to get, but we really see the opportunity as we move forward to be able to have a lot of other items at our disposal to be able to cooperatively purchase together.
Questions from council? Anybody in the audience? Back to council?
I'd move to approve.
Second.
Everybody in favor? Oh,
With
there's
emergency.
With emergency.
All in favor?
Wait, I'd like to move to approve with emergency.
There it is, right on paper.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you.
Chief's up next.
The chief's back.
I told you guys were going to get sick of me by the end of the night.
Never, never.
So I'd like to come and request your approval to accept a grant. So there was an opportunity to apply for the American Rescue Plan Law Enforcement Violence Reduction and Staffing Grant for the year of 2022. It's a new grant program that the governor announced to use some of the state's ARPA funding. There were multiple different ways or different kind of avenues you could apply for money for, and as much as I would have loved to apply for money for violence reduction, I'm happy to say we did not qualify for that money because our violent crime rate is down. So although I would love to have applied for money in that regard, we were unable to for that reason. But there is an element of this grant opportunity that allowed us to apply for money for retention bonuses for employees. And seeing that it was mentioned earlier, we have somewhat recently lost an officer to a lateral transfer process to Hudson Police. And the potential for that to continue, specifically with, one of the things that our unions did is came to us in a contract negotiation year during COVID and said, we don't want to put the city in a position to negotiate during the pandemic with the uncertainty and the financial uncertainty. So they came to us and voluntarily forewent raises for a year. and that's a compounding raise that they'll never be able to make up. So when this grant opportunity came up and I saw that you could use it to pay retention bonuses, I applied for it and have recently received word from the state that we have been approved to be able to pay our officers a 10% bonus in 2 installments, one this year and one next year. So the total grant amount for, and I said officers, and I misspoke, I apologize, it's officers and dispatchers. So I do have to say that we have a couple employees in the police department that are not eligible for the grant funding, but it's all police officers of all ranks and all of our dispatchers. And the grand total of that for the course of the entire grant this year and next year would be $376,771.20 is what the state has awarded us. So I'm just asking that for your permission to accept those grant funds.
Questions from council? Anybody from the audience? Back to council?
Move to approve with emergency.
Second.
Do you have any comments? Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Chief's back up again.
Mr. Kuhar, did you oppose or were you for it or against?
What?
Did you yes or no?
Your vote was late.
No, it's for it. I made the motion.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I didn't yell loud enough.
I'm still up, I think, right? You're up. All right. The next one is just a request. I've come to you several times throughout the course of the last couple of years requesting that approval to accept grant funding through the Ohio Law Enforcement Body Armor Program. This will be the final time that I'm here requesting this grant award. As again, I don't know if this is good or bad, but we have maxed out with this is the final payment. So the life of this grant opportunity, the state's willing to pay $40,000 to each police department, and this is our final one. We're going to take advantage of the entire $40,000. So I'm here to request your permission for, and it's all need-based too, really. So we have our final 3 officers that were just fitted for vests. The 3 newly hired officers that they'll be here in the near future. So I'm just requesting that we accept $801.43, which is the amount of money we have left to be able to be awarded by the state.
Questions from council? Anybody from the audience? Back to council?
Move to authorize with the emergency.
Second.
Any comments?
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Glenn, comments?
No, just thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
What was
Thank
that,
you.
John?
Got it. Here, Ms. Hall, the last person up.
Oh, yeah.
So according to the codified ordinances, we certify on an annual basis any bills that are due to the city. We certify them to Portage County to be added to the property tax owner's tax bill. So in front of you, you have 3 memos. One is for certifying the unpaid concrete, sidewalk, and street rehabilitation bills. Another memo is for certifying delinquent non-utility debtors. And the last one is for certifying delinquent for utility debts. So I ask the council approve with emergency.
Any questions from council? Audience? Back to council?
Move to approve with emergency.
Second.
Any comments? No? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and last one?
Last one is another budget appropriation amendment request, number 5 for the year. I sent a memo out to the city manager on July 25th of this year. Just request that council approve with emergency.
Questions from council? Anybody from the audience? Back to council?
Move to approve with the emergency.
Second.
Any comments? Comments?
No.
Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Well done, Tracy.
Yeah. There we go.
That was the
Get through that
quickest.
one.
We are. Well done. We're adjourned.
Hey, Chief.
Tracy did.
I got through a lot.